so now I have my selection of words, and I've noticed that I mix them up a little bit. So I'm going to do both the ones I marked as Argentinian words and some fun facts from the Gaucho culture and Argentinian culture. The first word is paviando, which I already explained in Lucrecia Borgia. Whenever we say that something is kind of silly or that it doesn't take too much effort, we say that is something pavo, which means turkey in Spanish. I don't know why we hate turkeys so much that we think of them as lazy, but in this case, if I'm not wrong, is when Isabel's mother arrives and finds her with his name was Gumercindo, and she says that it's too early to be paveando at that time, so it's too early to not do not anything at the time, or to just, being lazy at this moment in the morning. Like it's too early for that. So that's what it says. Okay, so now we have the word abusado or abusado, as she says it in this time. So this was difficult because in itself the word means abused, but it's not with that context. It's not with that meaning. I mean, it can mean that kind of abuse, whether it's violent or abuse. But in this case, it's more like fresh. Like how do you dare to do this? You are abusing my good will towards you. So I most of the times I changed it to fresh. Like someone who's taking advantage of you. That's what it means in this time. So I just wanted to clarify that because they keep saying abusado all the time, but it's not because the person has been abused. It's more like they are abusing someone else's patience, someone else's goodwill towards them. Chupar al boliche. Chupar means to suck, and suck something for drinking in this case. Boliche is one word that we use especially for kind of like a nightclub or a pub, a place where you can have alcohol and have a good time. So that's why he says, there are. I think I translated it as drinking at the pub. We don't have pubs here, but we have boliches. And especially during this time, you will see that it says pulperia. Pulperias were usually not just a place for the gauchos to go drink and eat, but it was also a general store because, of course, when you're in the middle of nowhere, you didn't have supermarkets, you didn't have, delivery at your door, and everything that you needed to buy was in these stores called pulperias, and pulpero is the person that owns that store and tends it. So now the pulperia is like is a store where you can also drink and eat, and also it's a boliche because it's a place to drink. Canejo. Canejo is a word that doesn't really have a meaning, as far as I know. It's used mostly to replace carajo. Carajo is a word that is borderline a curse word because it can mean, if somebody sends you to the carajo, it could be like going to hell. But it can also mean like doing nothing, when someone says no haces un carajo, you're not doing, well, you're not doing shit in that case. So it's not precisely a curse word, but it's not a nice word to hear, and that's why some people would say canejo, especially when trying to interject on something, to show their frustration mostly because it's not used in the same way. So instead of saying carajo, you would say canejo. So that's basically what it means. Abombado. Abombado is a word that, as an interpreter, I wish more people knew about because whenever I have a medical appointment and they will say, "Do you feel lightheaded?" In Argentina, we say abombado for lightheaded. The sensation that you're not yourself very well, that you're not about to faint, but almost. This disorientation, so to speak, is being abombado. As I said before, there's some mispronunciations. Among them, instead of comisaría, which is the sheriff office, it's not quite the police department, it's something smaller, so that's why I translated it as office all the time. But instead of comisaría, which is the right word to use, they say comiseria. It can also be a joke with miseria, which is misery. So I don't know. In this moment, maybe it can be, like a joke, but usually people will mispronunciate the word. Now, going back to the mate, we also call the head a mate because it's the place that contains all the important stuff. So it's more than usual to hear people referring to their head as their mate. Se rompió el mate, he broke his head. So it's just a small fun fact for you. Mandote. Uh, the character that is deaf is not kind of deaf, is very deaf. First of all, he sounds very Spanish. There are a lot of Spaniards that came over later, during this time, give it or take, the 1880s, well, 1850s to 1880s. Many of them were Spanish and they went to work on the fields. So he has a very Spanish way of speaking. Not to the point as it happened in Los Árboles Mueren de Pie, where the grandparents and the grandson were Spanish and they have a different way to speak. But there's something about the pronunciation he has and the kind of like the attitude that marks him as Spanish. And he uses the word mandote. I did try to find the word, I couldn't find it, but I found that it's probably a mistake. It's a very common mistake to use mandote instead of machote. Machote meaning very, very manly. It's probably accepted at this point. It's in itself, the word doesn't have a meaning, but it's mostly, the adaptation or mispronunciation to the word machote. Well, here I have peludo and quirquincho. Both words refer to the same animal, which is an armadillo. There's another name for this animal among us, which is mulita. And, it's this very nice little mammal that lives amongst us. Sadly, up north, during the sometime, even now, but less likely than before, mulitas were used also to create an instrument called charango. The charango is supposed to be like a joke on the guitar, but it has a very beautiful sound and very characteristic, especially from the north of our country, northwest. So the mulita, peludo, or quirquincho, the three animals are the same, which is an armadillo, or armadillo, as we say as well. Well, Truco. Truco is a very popular card game here in Argentina. I don't know how to play it. Nobody in my family knows how to play it. And when you try to read the instructions for it, it doesn't make really sense. I mean, it's something that you have to learn from someone who really likes the game and knows how to play it very well and has a lot of patience because I really, there's so many rules to it. I think the way I could describe it is pretty much like blackjack. I think you need to reach a certain level of points with the cards. Of course, we use the Spanish cards, not the French cards. So each card has their own, well, their points, of course, but also some cards are more like the Joker on them. They have different characteristics, and the main difference is that you play in pairs. So usually, if you see four people playing truco, there's two against two. And when you have your teammate, you have to develop like a language between you two in order to fool the other two, to make them believe that you have certain cards and when you have the other one. So there are a lot of signals and different words and phrases that you have to use in order to fool the other two. So as you can imagine, it's a very hard game to try to explain. And whenever you read the instructions in it, because there are books about truco, there are different apps to learn how to play truco, and something is like no, I cannot process this information. I'm pretty sure that a person can explain it better. So now it's a very tricky card game that is very popular in here. Chingolo. Chingolo is the name of Sergeant Paniagua's horse, and it's kind of funny because it's another animal. The chingolo is a little bird. Actually, in the area where I live, there used to be lots of chingolos. Every now and then you can see them. It's a bird that is smaller than a sparrow, and it has a little bit of orange on the neck, and the boys, well, the males have more like a little crest on top of the head, and so it's this very little bird that exists, and he decided to call his horse like a bird because why not? Yes. When the rustler is talking to Sergeant Paniagua about these stolen cattle that he has, he's talking about las guías. Las guías translates itself as the guides, and for a while I thought that he referred to like the leader of the pack. Usually, especially with horses, they will have like the leader, which is called madrina. Sometimes is a female that guides all the others. So I thought that he referred to whatever cow or bull was like the main one on that pack. But actually, for what I found, las guías or the guides were the paperwork. The paperwork saying, that these were bought by someone, sold over someone. He's saying that all the paperwork is in order. Clearly, it's not because he falsified a few things. But now we know the guías is not just a guide, but it's also the paperwork, the legal paperwork to move the cattle from one place to another. There's a moment where Sergeant Paniagua says something like, yo preparo las varillas y me las como también. So basically, this phrase is like saying, I will bake the cake and eat it too. It's saying, I will prepare something and I'll be the only one who has a benefit from it. When he says varillas, varilla is usually a metal rod. So in this case, it's something that is used to prepare the asado. I'm pretty sure that it refers to this kind, but it's also possible that it's more like a brochette kind of thing. I don't know what kind of varilla he refers to, but he's basically saying that, I prepare all of this and I eat it as well, and I get the benefit. Gurisa. Gurisa is, well, the male is guri and the female is gurisa. Is a way to say kid or child. There's this expression from the Gaucho culture and, these times, which is guri del viento. Guri del viento will mean the child of the wind or wind's child. It refers to kids that were born and didn't have a father. Like saying they came from the wind. So it's basically that word. Another word that is used, but up north, is chango. Chango also means kid or child. So those are two words within the culture that we have. Mirasol. Mirasol is a way we call the sunflower. I mean, the official Spanish word for it is girasol, which means spin with the sun, girasol. We use mirasol, which means to look at the sun. So the plant that looks at the sun, basically. Desplume. When Sergeant Paniagua says something like, we need new blood for the rip-off. That's how I translate it. Because desplumar, is to remove or to pluck out the feathers of an animal. To clean them completely. So it is a word that is also used when someone is going to rip someone off or they're going to take everything they have. It's basically that, we need new people to steal from. That's what he means. Well, in here I put mandar y meterse. So mandar is to send and meterse is to sneak in. In this case, if I'm not wrong, is Sergeant Paniagua speaking to Benitez and says, when the wife gets into your business kind of thing. So mandar can be, to send something over like a letter, but it can also mean when someone gets into an affair or business that is not of their concern. Ellos se mandan, they send themselves over to get it done or to do it. So it's kind of like a despective way to say that someone is doing something that they shouldn't be doing. Meterse is basically the same thing. Meterse is to get something inside of something else, or to jump into something. So it's basically that, it's a very despective way to say that she's meddling on his affairs and he doesn't like it. Empacado como una mula. Empacar, well, it's used in Spanish as well to pack, to put something in a bag or in a box. But empacarse, it means to stop moving, so to speak. Yeah, that's why it's most of the time will be paired with as a mule, like a mule or like a donkey sometimes, because these kind of animals, whenever you try to move them from one place to another, they will just stop moving and they won't move because they don't want to. So, when someone does that and is a human, we will say that he is empacado like a mule or empacado como un burro, like a donkey. So I don't know if there's an English word for that. I think not. It's not getting stuck because you're not getting stuck. You're stopping because you don't want to move forward. So it's kind of like throwing a temper tantrum, but a silent one because um, you're not making a big mess or you're not yelling or anything. You just stop doing it because you don't feel like that. You're tired and you don't want to move anymore. You had enough of it, so you stop. And so that's what it is. Tatas. I know that in English they might use them for something else, but here in Argentina, when you speak about the tata or tatas, in this case is plural, you mean the father, or parents in this case. It's very common to see, especially on the countryside with the gauchos. They will always refer to their father or grandfather as tata, and even to God they say tata Dios, because God is the father of it all. So that's a word that is very, very common, and you will hear it even today. Compadrea. Compadrea is actually borrowed from the tango culture. The tango is mostly located just on the city area of Buenos Aires. The rest of the country only has folklore. But compadrear comes from compadrito. Compadrito is the typical tango bad boy, so to speak. He's the one that will go into a bar and pick up a fight and have duels and stuff like that. So the idea of compadrear or to be a compadrito, it means you're this person that is kind of full of themselves and you think yourself to be that you deserve to be respected and you will earn that respect by fighting someone. So he's pretty much picking up fights in this context on the movie. Martín Fierro and Viejo Vizcacha. First of all, I need to clarify one thing because I made a mistake. Given that I never read the Martín Fierro, I know it's shameful on my end, but the Viejo Vizcacha is actually written with an S, not with a C. And I made a mistake because Vizcacha is an animal, is this rodent that exists in here, and is that's why Jose Hernandez, who's the writer of the Martin Fierro, decided to use the name Vizcacha but change it in order not to have the full association to the animal. Because basically, Martin Fierro is everything that someone should aspire to be. He's very honest and loyal and a good person. And the Viejo Vizcacha is quite the opposite. So Martin Fierro is a gaucho that is picked up to fight, and he has to leave his family behind. And eventually, when he returns, the family is no longer there. The wife had found a new husband, and the children were sent over to be taken care of by other people. Among those people was El Viejo Vizcacha, and the Viejo Vizcacha always tries to. he gives wrong advice to the kid. He's kind of sneaky and always trying to do the best for himself and nobody else. So there's these two oppositions because Martin Fierro is everything that is honorable, and Diego Vizcacha is quite the opposite. And so basically, that is why Suffocación says be more like Mr. Martin Fierro and less like the old Vizcacha. Because he's saying be a man, a proper man, instead of being this slimy, rat, slimy rat. And in case you didn't know, the Martin Fierro is the first. I don't know if it's the first, but it's the most important piece of Gaucho literature that we have. I have the book right here because my aunt gave it to me. This is one of the editions by Martin Fierro, Jose Hernandez, the author. There used to be a time where we would celebrate on November 10th the birth of Jose Hernandez. It was the tradition day at the time. It's no longer being celebrated. I don't know why. But as you can see, it is an epic. By an epic, it means that it's a poem that tells a story. And given that it's a poem that tells a story, it has the rhythm of pachada. We will talk about the songs later. A pachada is basically at the beginning of the song. At the beginning of the movie, you will hear a song. That is a pachada. It's Jorge Cafrune singing, giving kind of like an introduction into this movie. And that is the rhythm, and you can use that rhythm to read this book. Also, I think it's going to take you quite some time because it's quite long. But well, this is an epic. In case you're wondering, you can read it. It's been translated to many languages. I've seen it in English, and I've seen it in Russian as well. So it's everywhere out there. If you want to know more about the Gaucho culture, this is like the first book that you have to read. Well, there's this part where Sergeant Paniagua and the Corporal Torterolo are talking. Torterolo is kind of drunk and he's telling all the truth to Sergeant Paniagua. And this is a wordplay basically because ganado, it means to win something and also means cattle. So he says, what for you is ganado, what you've earned for others is stolen. So in Spanish, in English, it doesn't quite translate. I mean, it's not impossible to understand it, but it's funny. It's funnier in Spanish because it says, "Oh, your cattle has been stolen." It has the both meanings. Something I forgot, and I even forgot to put it in here on my list, but it was also on the Trees Die Standing movie, was this hand gesture. This hand gesture is very common. We still use it today. It means to steal something or that something was stolen or something that is worthy to steal. So in this case, Torterolo uses when he says, well, what for you was earned, for other ones was stolen. And that's what he says. And also in the trees I standing, I will put a little piece of it so you can see it. Basically, if you ever come to Argentina, to Buenos Aires and someone does this gesture, I think that either they're talking about something that was stolen or something that will be stolen, so be careful around that people. Morrocotonuda. This is one word that I've heard it, but I never really had to write it down. It means, it'd be great, it'd be amazing, surprising, all of that combined. So he's talking about the party. The party will be great. There will be more than great. I don't know. It'll be amazing. It's something that's going to be incredible and awesome and all of that. Aguantar. Aguantar is a word that is very versatile. It can mean good things and bad things depending. So aguantar means to support or to hold. So for instance, you can say that you'll be aguantando this season. You'll be supporting or withstanding these periods of time. It can also mean to cheer someone up, hacer el aguante, or to support for someone, to pull for someone, I think will be as well. As I said, I don't remember in which context in the movie the word shows up. I wrote it down, so it's there, but I don't remember the context. So it can be something good, like saying, we're going to support these people because they deserve it. And it can also mean something bad, like saying we need to hold in, hanging on that, hanging there. That's basically that's basically what it means. Calzonudos. Well, Suffocación decides to insult the people that choose to stay in the police office by calling them calzonudos. You need to know that calzón is a word that we use for the underwear, and especially in this case, by the grammatical construction of the word, it means a very big underwear. And within that, in reason, you think of a diaper. This very big and bulky thing that is always in the way. So that'll be a calzón or calzonudo. And that's why I translated it as babies, because she's saying that they have this very big and bulky underwear like a child, like a baby. So that's why she uses as an insult.